Hello everyone, this is Kestrel Raptorial, and upon hearing about the news and stories of the Central American caravan invasion, really, still making its way up to the United States border, we really need to talk about this. The American midterms are at hand, and we need everyone to go out and vote Republican. I applied for a vote by mail ballot, which I'm currently finishing filling in. I will be sending it out tomorrow. I will be mailing it the 29th of November, so it should easily be handed in for accounting well before the due date. And the best approach, the Democrats have become just so insane that even though I really wish the Republicans and the Libertarians as well were being a lot braver in their stand against socialism and also actually giving us a cut in government spending as well as cutting taxes and shrinking the government as we elected a Republican majority for, the left has gotten so off the wall and saying that they really need to be stopped, and perhaps we can work step by step on that a little later, but we have to put a stop to this invasion. We have to stand our ground. Many countries around the world still view America, mostly meaning the United States and North America, a little bit in Canada, but when they say America, they really mean the US, is paradise. Despite the reality that the US is in a massive cultural civil war over the ability to regain its hold onto the precipice of its survival and not fall into the pit of lawlessness and chaos forever, as we will if we ever do turn 100% socialist. Every socialist country in the world is a gang run or totalitarian run, murder free-for-all, rape free-for-all, and the real rape, not the social justice loser or insane feminist version of rape, which has definition expands to cover pretty much every kind of interaction that they don't directly say they want, which is, that's also more proof of their insanity. No, the socialist countries are the real rape and disease hellholes. If the United States ever becomes that, there will be nowhere else in the world to go. There will not be a safe country on the planet. America often is called, and was, the Great Experiment. But the Great Experiment doesn't really work if people are not willing to work, to earn their living, and to not force others or steal from others to get the stuff they want, which happens in most non-Western countries in the world. The exception maybe being Japan and a few British Commonwealth countries, but even they are falling. The fantasization of other cultures goes on all the time. And it's understandable, it's a human thing. Japan is believed by many Westerners, usually anime fans, let's be honest, to be a paradise culture, and one thing Japan is good at is defending its identity and not joining in on the globalism project, which will be a gigantic failure, except for the top few people who have the power to push nuclear buttons at the tips of their fingers. And those are the people you do not want with that power. Yeah, everyone was saying how Trump is so insane, but Trump is actually very sane. Trump has not gotten us into a stupid war as everyone was saying he would. He's been very rational and conservative in his government approach. And we wish he'd have a little more control over his mouth, but, I mean, he's in his 70s. What's the chance he's going to change? I mean, what he's actually done is better than a lot of people were thinking we would get. So enough with the anti-Trump hate. Just stop it. Where was I? Japan. Japan. Japan, a couple of problems that country really does have that it needs to address. Treats its women far better than its men. If you're familiar with the term karoshi, worked to death, Japanese men having to work so intensely in such long hours that they literally die of overwork, not enough sleep, or time to take care of their own health. That country's going to have to fix that at some point. I also really wish East Asians would really take a load off their kids in just how much they push academic achievement. Because, cultures with that shame achievement, like, let's be totally honest, American black culture. One of the skill, that's completely shunning it. That's making fun, saying you're an Oreo to, black on the outside, white on the inside. Although there are golden Oreos, which are actually quite good, but that's the actual snack. Really wish they'd change that. Really wish they'd drop that attitude. But the East Asians, Chinese, Japanese, Koreans, who put this hyper emphasis on all the kids can do is study. High marks, being top of the class, everything. And you'll see hints of this in anime if you pay close attention. And that's the other end of the scale. That's not good either. Now, the problem that white Westerners have is sort of in the middle, but in almost nihilism, sort of a kind of third extreme, is that, well, we'll expect achievement, but we'll not pay attention to what the schools are becoming, not pay attention to how they're indoctrinating our kids, not, they all say they're teaching critical thinking, but they're not. They're not, and you know that. Now, anytime a child challenges a teacher, what do they get? They get shouted down if it's something the teacher doesn't like to hear. I got that all the time in schools, and that has got to stop. We've really got to start homeschooling more. I was once, a couple of years ago, at a game store I go to, frequently where I go to for Magic the Gathering tournaments. I went to another tournament the Friday before this. A lot of fun. I brought my Ixalan Raptor deck, which I updated a little bit since last time. I think I didn't make a video since like March. I just had so much else to do. I did a little better that time. Did a little better I did last time. I did actually win a match, but this is so off topic from the video, but I'll talk about that when I have actual time to talk about it. Other things I had to do this week, I had to go talk to a whole new dentist because the ones I had previously just screwed up so much. I know I need dental work done, but it's going to be a very long process. I tried to go to a job interview. Unfortunately, I kind of blew it. The job was so weird and so outside my expertise. I'm not sure why they called me in. I was invited to interview, but it really wasn't, it's not that it wasn't the perfect job for me, it was just that it was so outside of my skills. I don't know why these people called me to interview. And I had other projects. I have this presentation to give to the Geological Society that I'm a part of. In about 2.5 weeks on volcanoes and supervolcanoes, I will be mentioning the Volcano de Fuego that erupted earlier this year in Guatemala. I'll be talking about the Kilauea eruptions, so very relevant to the events of this year, as well as the Yellowstone supervolcano. I'll be explaining all of these, and I'll try to load that presentation, maybe even a video of it, as I go. I'll have to see if my computer is able to take videos. Up for YouTube, I'm working very hard on that, so several things to do in the week. Really no time to make trading card game videos, even though I do wish I had more time to have fun with that. Every country in the world. Well, let's start at the smaller level. Every person in the world has their own problems that they need to address. Every family has their own problems they need to address. Every neighborhood, every city, every state, every country in the world has problems they need to address. No one has it right. But the cultures that got it closest to right, such as back when America had much more actually privatized and small-scale education, had the right idea there for a long time. Japan still has the right idea on defending its cultural identity. Europe, well, before they let all the Muslims in, Europe had right idea about, these countryside, beautiful landscapes. I wish humans worked like we were able to look throughout history, including modern times, including bits and pieces of cultures that had one aspect right, another culture that had one aspect right over here, and we're able to take these aspects that worked best and put them together. Then we might actually get something close to utopia. Unfortunately, the reality is, well, it's a little complicated. First of all, not everyone wants the same thing. Not everyone has the same priorities. Not everyone has the same values. And not everyone has the same, even close to the same intelligence. Stefan Molyneux in his videos talks a lot about race and IQ. And as scary as that topic, uncomfortable more than scary, may seem to explore, it does explain a lot. And how we got the way that we did, it has a lot to do with human nature and evolution and just what different people prioritize. It's a long, complex story, but we do know enough that we should be getting it more right than we are. And one thing we really need to get straight is that every country... Shut up, phone. You're just giving me junk mail. Every country in the world has a right to defend its borders, including the United States of America. I would even say especially the most free countries, or the most still free countries. I'm even questioning how free the most free countries are anymore, but there are steps we could take. That there is still a bit of an opening. There are steps we could take to bring back a lot more freedom than that we once had, that we think we've been enjoying for a long time, but not so much as you'd think. Many people think of, many people think of the Caribbean and other tropical islands as paradise, but what is almost always shown to us are the resort areas. Places that are specifically funded and decorated for tourism. And not always by the most honest means. Travel the tiniest distance outside of the resort areas in a lot of these countries, a lot of these cities, it doesn't take very long to find slums. Or even worse, neighborhoods run by gangs. And despite the focus being on too much relaxed gun laws every time there's a mass shooting, the gun laws are not the actual problem. The problem is authorities' ignoring of responsibility, and of far too often parents still believing that despite massive evidence to the contrary for decades, that schools are still safe places to be sending their children during the day. The truth is, the school environments have spun out of control. Also, the vast majority of death, by quantity of people killed by firearms, occur in the cities that are suffering from gang violence. Well, there's a lot of people shooting themselves over vengeance just because they're involved in gangs. Unfortunately, it's a very difficult problem to solve, specifically, especially once a country has already fallen into that, like a lot of these South American countries. You know, it's much easier to prevent that if you know how than to solve that situation once you're already in it. Because, among other things, it requires at least 2 or 3 generations of restabilizing the families and emphasizing from within the individual cultures the value of taking responsibility for one's own actions and the virtue of, just because you disagree with or are offended or wronged by another person, you do not get to beat them up or kill them. And I think we are all aware that that is a perspective not held and most certainly not reinforced by very many gangs in the world. But if those realizations are not realizations made by the people within those cultures or subcultures themselves, the real question is, how much can you do about it? And how much can any other country do about it? To be truthful, the sad answer is not much. And that is tragic, yes. But it is also the reality. And we've been ignoring reality for far too long. Now, with this caravan, let's call it what it actually is. It's an invasion. It's a direct assault on the very concept of American sovereignty, which, few people will challenge African countries' sovereignty, or India's sovereignty, or Japan's sovereignty. Japan's a very free and relatively still enjoyable world, except for the men. But that isn't talked about much. It should be. It should be. But and the reason it isn't attacked so much is, they just